Hi, I told you I'd try to post this tonight to give you a little help on how to do the time value of money worksheet. So in your Moodle, you have Unit 2, you have a devotional on money, and discussion board to discuss that devotional, a lecture on Unit 2, a discussion board about credit cards, a discussion or a mini lecture on the time value of money. That'll be a great help. I'm not discounting it. I just thought it might be helpful to talk it through and hear someone talk about it. And then you've got some worksheets that you're going to be downloading and keeping track of for yourself. These will be helpful worksheets. Okay, time value of money. Once you click on it, right here, you can download it. What I'm done is already downloaded it and calling it up here on my screen so that we can talk about it. There we go. Let's back up a little bit so it makes it a little easier to see. You're starting out with a discussion of present value and future value. Whole lot of stuff on this first page that is just introduction. The second page actually starts explaining it, and then it gives you practice questions. So before you have to do anything, it's page 2. It's going to tell you to use a table in the appendix of your book. That is perfectly fine. I will show you how to do that. But I'm going to also show you that you can use an online calculator to solve a lot of these problems. And I think the online calculator is easier. I'll let you determine that for yourself either way. It's just another way to get to the answer. Find which one works for you. So back to switching screens again. And I'm going to take you out to the online calculator. And crazy name, dinkytown.net. I know. Don't know who came up with it, but dinkytown.net has a bunch of really cool financial related calculators. You could think about getting a car loan. Go to the auto one. It's going to tell you how to calculate your car loan. Like, what's my payment going to be if I buy this car? That's nothing to do with what we're talking about, but some cool stuff to look up. You can do the same thing with mortgages or anything else. Where we want to go is the section that says finance. You click on it, and there's a basic financial calculator. The basic calculator is really just like a dollar store calculator. Add, subtract, multiply, divide. Doesn't have any of the things we need to do. So we need to jump down to the basic financial calculator. So we click that one, and it's going to come up looking like a calculator screen. Lots of buttons on it, some that don't make a lot of sense until you understand them a little better. All the definitions are down here of what that button does. So when we're here, the best way to do this is to actually take a mouse and click. You can see as I type, the numbers are showing up here. I just don't think it works as well to try to type the numbers with the 10 keypad on your keyboard, or those numbers up by the function keys. So point and click to choose your numbers. So why are we doing this and what are we doing? The time value of money is trying to explain to you, trying to help you figure out how much interest you'll earn, how much you'll have in your bank account if you'll leave it there. So we're going to do some really simple story problems. Let's say that we put $100 in the bank. So $100 in the bank today. PV stands for present value. Well, that's the present, right now, today. I'm sticking it in the bank. The bank says they're going to give me 5% interest. Well, any of you that deal with banking know that's just an outrageous amount of interest right now. You could hardly get any interest on anything. The interest rates are so low. But it makes the story more interesting and the math a little easier. If you leave $100 in the bank for a whole year, they'll give you 5% interest. Well, the calculator will do this, but I'm jumping ahead. It's $5. You get $5 worth of interest. So at the end of the year, you'll have $105 in the bank account. But to show you how the calculator would do that for you, All I've told it so far is the present value and how much interest. Did you notice when I typed the 5%, I didn't have to do a percent sign. I just said 5 and touched this button down here, and it knew that I meant 5%. Now I need to tell the calculator how many years I'm going to keep this money in the bank. I want to know how much I'll have after 1 year. So I'm going to 1, and N is for number of years. So that's all I need to tell it. $100 at 5% interest for a year. And I'll say, compute, what do I want to know? I want to know the future value. I'll have $105, which we already kind of figured out. If I want to change it to 25 years, I am going to set that $100 that I got as a bonus or something in that bank account, and I'm not touching it for 25 years. I'll type 25 and I'll go N. That will replace the one that was there and change it to a 25. Notice it didn't update how much was going to be in my account. I need to tell it again, compute future value. Well, my money's jumped in 25 years to $338.64. So it grew, which is what we want. We could have manually done that math. It would have been annoying, but we could have done it. We could say $100, 5% interest. After a year, we'll have $105. Then the next year, 5% interest on $105, and run the math again, and so on. But this is much easier. Let's look at a couple more. Some of our story problems will try to help us see. I'm taking a 0, touching 0, and touching all these spots so they wipe out and become 0. I'm a little paranoid about leaving numbers in the calculator and then messing up my future calculations. So instead, I take a little time and wipe them all back out to 0. Our numbers will probably be a lot bigger than $100, but they're still going to ask us, how much money will I have in the bank after so many years? So let's go to your time value of money worksheet again and see what kind of questions they ask us. Time value of money, and these are all about determining the future value of some lump sum of money. Just, I'm going to deposit this in a bank account and not touch it again. What will I have in the future? So the first question is, you're going to put $5,000 in the bank, you're going to leave it there for 8 years, and the bank's going to give you 8% interest. Well, hopefully you already got a pretty good idea how to do that one. You go out to the calculator and put your 5,000 in. Remember where that goes? That's what I'm depositing today. 8 years, 8% interest. That looks like what they told me. Compute future value. So after 8 years, I'll have $9,254.65. Notice it rounds it off to dollars and cents. But in actuality, it's all these numbers. We don't care. Round it off to dollars and cents is fine. No bank is going to report to you a number with 65,105 cents and so on. So when you go back to the time value of money problems, practice question 1A has 2 parts. You're going to need to change and do that same problem again, but this time with 10% interest. Then, looking at B, it says you have a 3-year-old grandchild, and you're going to give that grandchild $5,000. Going to put it in a bank account for 8%. So it sort of sounds like the same problem up above. But for some reason, I cannot understand this, but it makes for an interesting story. Your grandchild lets it sit until he or she is 53. Okay, I thought this problem, and I think it did originally read that the grandparent wouldn't let them touch the money until they were 53, which I thought was weird. Yeah, I can understand, saying you can't have this till you're 21 or you graduate or something like that, but you gotta wait till you're 53 to have the money. Anyway, so the whole point is that money's going to sit in that account for 50 years, whether it's grandparents' choice or whether it's the child's choice. The money sits in the account for 50 years. You're doing the same thing you did up here, just your N, the number of years, is 50, not 8. But otherwise, it's the same. And as you can imagine, that's going to grow quite a bit. That's a lot of years for that money to sit there. So that's one type of problem. And you've got these 3 things to answer. Well, actually 2, A and B. But A has 2 parts to it. Another thing you have to answer is, what will you have in the future? But this time, an annuity. That's kind of a strange word, but if you remember that it comes from the word annual, you will be able to process it a little better. All it's saying is you're going to put a certain amount of money in the bank every year for so many years, and you're trying to figure out what it's going to grow to. So $3,000, you're not just depositing it once, you're putting it in there every year, leaving it in an account that's going to grow at 9%, and you're going to keep it there for 30 years. So back to our calculator, we'll put in our amount of money, already forgotten what it was, $3,000. Oops, I'm doing it. Want to zero out my calculator before I do anything more with a new problem. 3,000 is what I'm depositing. I don't want to put it in the PV. That was for one time, right now, depositing it. Payment is where I want to put it. That means I'm paying it into this account every year for all those years. Then I would fill in the interest rate, the number of years, and then I would still compute future value. So read your problems carefully. Are they saying you're depositing an amount of money every year for so many years, or one time? It'll make a difference in which buttons you use. Then you've got 2 other sections. Present value of a set of money, a single sum, like a lump sum, or present value of an annuity. So we're flipping the story. But before we get into any of those, I'm going to take you here and we're just going to walk through a couple sample ones that I'll make up. Let's say that you figured out that your new baby is going to graduate high school, and oh boy, I've got to have a college fund for them. So in 18 years from now, you want to have a pile of money waiting to pay their tuition and room and board and all that. So you've done the calculations and you've got a number that you think, if I have this much money, I'll have enough to get them through college. I am making this number up. So I'm going to say $50,000. That's what you want to have in the future. It's not what you need to have today. You can put something smaller than $50,000 in the bank today and just leave it there and let it grow, and it will become $50,000. The problem is I can't just in my head do some math and say, oh, I know exactly what to put in the bank account today, and if I leave it there, it'll be $50,000 by 18 years from now. So instead, I'm going to let the calculator do it. I know I need it in 18 years, so the number of periods is set, and I figured out that bank account at the bank will give me 5% interest. So if I do all that, I can let the calculator tell me, by computing present value, that all I need to deposit in the bank account today is $20,776. Sounds good, except for the fact that it's probably not realistic that you have $20,000 just laying around to drop into an education fund for your kid. That's the present value of a lump sum, where you're going to deposit a lump sum and leave it, but you're trying to figure out how much it should be. So you're working backwards from what you want in the future to what it's going to be, what the present value is. The other option is that you can put away a certain amount. Like, I want to save so much every year so that in 18 years I'll have enough for my kid to graduate. So I'm going to clear out the present value because I know I'm not going to be doing that. Instead, I'm trying to figure out how much of a payment I need to make to myself or to that education fund every year for 18 years. So I'm going to compute payment. That's a little strange. It may not look right to you, and we'll probably want to just double check it. Because sometimes those can get messed up if we don't. So let's clear out the calculator. start again and say I'm putting $50,000 in the bank, or I want to have $50,000 in the bank in 18 years, going to earn 5% interest. I want to compute what my payment needs to be. And that's saying if I deposit $1,777.31 every year for the next 50 years, sorry, next 18 years, I'll have $50,000. So let's see. I can always test it. I'm going to clear it all out and say 1777 and 31 cents. 71. I'm going to trust that that was the number. 18, 5% interest, compute future value. Yep, I'll have pretty much $50,000. So that's a good way to check when you just feel like, I don't know if that looks right. So those are the 4 things you got to do. You're either going to find the future value or the present value, and either for a lump sum or an amount you're going to do every year, annually. So work through the problems. You may still run into a couple tricky spots that seem a little more difficult. Pop me an email, send me a text. We can work through those, post it on Moodle. Then everybody can benefit from the question, and we can start a conversation on the ones that are a little more tricky. The reason you're doing this is because as we progress through some of the other chapters, we're going to be talking about things that relate to Corey and Tisha Dumont, or to yourself and your own planning, where you're going to have to figure out, I need this amount of money in the future. What do I got to do today to do that? So there's some financial planning things that use calculators like this. So that's the reason. We're not just doing it to torture you. It's a good skill, and luckily you don't have to do the math. You just have to kind of get good at using the calculator. Okay, I promised you to show you what the book had as available ways to do this. So I'm going to turn to the book. I have an electronic version of it, and that's what I'm trying to get open right now. And jump all the way back here to, there we go, compound sum of $1. These are charts at the appendix in the back of your book. So if you have, let's say you're going to put $1,000 away and you want to leave it there for 5 years. You go to the 5-year line, and then you say, what interest rate's the bank going to give me? Oh, let's say 4%. So where 4% meets 5 years, you get that number. And you multiply that number by what you put in the bank account. So $1,000 times that number, and that will tell you what will be there at the end of 5 years if you get 4% interest. So it's not bad. You get a little factor and you have to multiply it by some numbers in your problem. If you want to know more about the textbook way to do things, you'll see it in your lecture notes. You'll also see it in the instructions to the problem, or contact me and I'll walk you through more things to do with the textbook charts in the back of the book. So I hope to hear from you, and let me know if you have any questions.